After getting pregnant with the only child of the infertile emperor, I've won just by lying down. After being favored by the drunken emperor, I brewed a bowl of abortion tea under the cover of night. Everyone in the harem knew the emperor loved the empress to the bone. For a nobody like me, who was accidentally favored while he was drunk, having his child would be a death sentence. But just as the bowl touched my lips, a few lines of golden text appeared in front of my eyes. Oh no, this is the tyrant's only bloodline. And it's triplets. That quack doctor's remedy was deliberate. The emperor took the medicine meant for the empress, and he's now completely infertile. I stared at the words, infertile, and triplets, my hand trembling, spilling half the soup. The next second, I poured the rest into the incense burner's ashes. Why drink abortion tea? This was clearly my golden path to becoming the Empress Dowager. Triplets, and the emperor is infertile. My mind was in chaos. These two facts combined meant the three little ones in my belly were the only heirs to the entire Great Yen dynasty. I, Su Jinyuan, entered the palace through the southern selection 6 months ago, granted the lowest rank of Dei. That day, I was temporarily assigned to deliver a midnight snack to the imperial study. The emperor was dead drunk and mistook me for the empress. The next morning, when he sobered up, his gaze was cold. He just said, "Don't breathe a word about this," and left. I obediently kept my mouth shut, shrinking back into my side chamber to be invisible. It wasn't until half a month ago that I started throwing up, until my stomach churned with bile. I secretly went to see Dr. Zhao in the southern part of the city, 2 months pregnant. At that moment, I only had one thought. I'm doomed. Empress Rong's jealousy was notorious. The last concubine the emperor glanced at twice, accidentally, fell into the water on the 3rd day, and when she was pulled out, she was already cold. That's why I brewed the abortion tea. But now, things had changed. The emperor could never have another child. If I aborted this pregnancy, that would be the real death sentence. Dei Su. Dei Su. A panicked voice came from outside the door. It was Xinger. Milady, Mother Yun from the Empress's side is here, with 2 attendants. They want to inspect the accounts of our side chamber. Inspecting accounts in the middle of the night. I glanced at the incense burner. The ashes were already seamlessly mixed. Let her inspect. Xinger was on the verge of tears. Milady. She won't find anything. When Mother Yun entered, I was sitting at the table copying Buddhist scriptures, my posture submissive, my breathing steady. Behind her, 2 palace maids swept their eyes across the room like knives. Their gaze landed on the incense burner and paused for 3 seconds. My heart skipped a beat. She wrinkled her nose. What's that smell? Oddly fishy. Mother, it's calming incense. I've been sleeping poorly lately, so I lit some low-grade incense. Please forgive me. Mother Yun flipped through the items on my table, opened the cabinet, and found nothing unusual. As she left, she turned back and said with a smirk, Dei Su, the Empress has a message, those in the harem must not be restless. The moment the door closed, my back was soaked with cold sweat. She hadn't found any evidence. But the Empress was already suspicious. Somehow, news of my pregnancy had leaked. It wasn't confirmed yet, but that woman's nose was sharper than a hound's. Xinger leaned in and whispered, Milady, what do we do now? What to do? Triplets show earlier than a single pregnancy. At the latest, within 2 months, this belly would be impossible to hide. I needed a physician, a patron, a way out. And right now, I had none. As I was thinking, another line of golden text flashed before my eyes. Little Dei, why not try your luck at the Imperial Garden? The emperor and empress had a fight recently. He'll likely go there to clear his head. The next morning, I changed into a less shabby teal padded gown and headed to the imperial garden with Xinger. In the cold of January, the garden was nearly empty. In the distance, a figure in bright yellow stood alone under the plum tree. Only 2 eunuchs waited far behind. My heart was in my throat. Last time I saw him, his gaze was cold enough to freeze a person. But I had no way out. I pulled Xinger around to the other side of the plum tree, pretending I hadn't seen him, and said to her, "These plum blossoms are beautiful. Let's pick a branch to offer before the Buddha." Xinger went to pick the flowers, and I bent down to gather fallen petals. Then a real dizziness slammed into me. It wasn't an act. Ever since I became pregnant, I'd been prone to fainting, but this time it came on fast and hard, and my vision went black. As my body pitched forward, a hand caught me firmly at the small of my back. That hand was strong, but it stiffened the moment it touched me. "How dare you?" An icy voice came from above. I forced my eyes open and met a pair of pitch-black eyes. Shui Jingyuan, the youngest emperor of the Great Yen dynasty. "Your Majesty. I'm sorry." He pulled his hand away as if burned, stepping back 2 full paces. The disgust on his face was unmistakable. "What's your name?" "Su Jinyuan, attendant of Jingyue Pavilion." His brow furrowed, clearly recalling that night. His whole face darkened like the bottom of a pot. "Go back to your palace. Don't linger in my sight." He turned and walked away, his robe hem sweeping a cold wind. I didn't chase after him. I slowly stood up and brushed the dirt from my knees. Xinger's face was pale with fright. "Mistress, the emperor is so fierce." I watched his retreating figure and said calmly, "It's fine. He should remember me now." That's enough. For the next 3 days, I stayed cooped up in Jingyue Pavilion, not stepping out. The golden words appeared from time to time, and I slowly figured out the pattern. They were like a group of bystanders commenting on my life. They didn't give direct orders, but they revealed key information. From those fragments, I pieced together several things. First, Empress Rong didn't truly love the emperor. Second, the fact that the emperor's health was damaged by experimenting with medicines was known only to the head of the Imperial Medical Bureau, and it was strictly confidential. Third, the itinerant doctor, who gave the emperor the wrong prescription, was introduced into the palace by someone from the Rong family. The third piece was the most terrifying. What if that medicine wasn't an accidental mistake, but deliberate? Why would the Rong family make the emperor infertile? Before I could figure it out, trouble arrived. Empress Rong summoned me alone to Fengyi Palace for a courtesy visit. By custom, an attendant like me only needed to pay respects on the 1st and 15th of the month. A private summons could only mean trouble. I changed into the loosest cotton robe and wrapped myself in 3 thick layers. In the cold of January, wearing more was plausible. At Fengyi Palace, Empress Rong sat upright on her phoenix chair. She had an oval face, willow leaf eyebrows, and a hint of a smile in her almond-shaped eyes. But that smile didn't reach her eyes. "Attendant Su, you've come. Please, sit." I paid my respects and sat on the embroidered stool at the end. "I heard you've been feeling unwell lately." She held her teacup, her voice soft like coaxing a kitten. My heart tightened. "Your Majesty, it's just a change of climate. A person from the south never quite gets used to the north." "Is that so?" She set down the teacup. "I also heard you fainted in the Imperial Garden." News travels fast. "I skipped breakfast, that's all." I'm sorry to have worried you. Empress Rong smiled and turned to her maid. Summon Dar Gao to take attendant Su's pulse. My blood ran cold. Doctor. Gao was one of the Rong family's people. One touch of my wrist would reveal a pregnancy pulse, and he'd report it to the Empress immediately. I couldn't let him touch my wrist. Your Majesty, there's no need to trouble the doctor. I'm truly recovered. Your health matters. Don't be stubborn. Her tone remained gentle, but it brooked no refusal. My mind raced. Heaven must not have wanted to take me yet. Suddenly, a commotion erupted outside Fengyi Palace. Your Majesty. Consort Shu has fallen in Ilan Hall, she's bleeding. Empress Rong's expression changed instantly. As Empress, she had to be the first on the scene when something happened in the harem, or it would be seen as negligence. After a moment's hesitation, she stood. Attendant Su's pulse can wait for another day. I rose respectfully to see her off, my expression unchanged. As I walked out of Fengyi Palace, my legs were so weak I nearly stumbled on the steps. I dodged a bullet. But the word, another day, hung over my head like a sword ready to fall at any moment. Next time, she wouldn't give me a chance to slip away. Back at Jinghua Pavilion, I sent Xing'er to find out if there was any physician in the Imperial Medical Bureau who wasn't connected to the Rong family. Then I started thinking about how to erase all traces of my pregnancy on paper. 2 days later, Xing'er returned with news. There was a young physician named Shen Qingyun at the Imperial Medical Bureau. He came from a poor family, had no backing, and was so sidelined that he couldn't even get a proper assignment. I asked him to come treat me, citing a minor cold. When Shen Qingyun walked in, he was in his early 20s, bookish and thin, with a slightly nervous look in his eyes. I dismissed Xing'er and closed the door. Physician Shen, I need you to keep a secret for me. What? Take my pulse. His fingertips touched my wrist. In less than 10 seconds, all the color drained from his face. This. You know now. He jerked his hand back, his chair scraping half a foot away. The Imperial heir. Sit down. My tone steadied him. He paused, then slowly sat back down. I looked him straight in the eye and said, word by word, I need a physician to help me protect this pregnancy and hide it from everyone. Help me, and once the child is born, you'll have earned your place among the meritorious. He was silent for a long time. When you took my pulse, you must have felt how precious this pulse is. His fingers trembled slightly. Lady Su, triplets are extremely rare in medical records. Whether your body can hold, that's why I need you. From that day on, Shen Qingyun came every 3 days, prescribing miscarriage-preventing medicine under the pretext of a lingering cold. The prescriptions were all written as cough remedies. Days passed, tight and slow. My belly grew bigger every day. Loose robes could still hide it, but I was running out of time. Then, on the 10th day, the golden text blazed a sudden warning. The little attendant doesn't know yet, but the Empress has already found that Dr. Zhao from the south of the city. Blood rushed to my head. Xing'er. Dr. Zhao, find a way to get him out of the capital today. 2 hours later, Xing'er came back, pale as a ghost. Too late, mistress. Dr. Zhao died suddenly at home this morning. The authorities say it was a sudden illness. I stood frozen. Dr. Zhao was dead. Empress Rong now knew for certain that I was pregnant. And she had silenced the only witness. And then, she could kill me quietly. The next day, Palace sent over a plate of osmanthus cakes. The maid delivering them smiled sweetly. Her Majesty said Lady Su lives modestly, so she had the small kitchen make these especially. I thanked her, closed the door, and looked at the delicate pastries. Beneath the sweet scent, there was a faint, barely perceptible odor of blood. I had Shen Qingyun examine them. He tested them with a silver needle, then crumbled one and sniffed it. His face darkened. Saffron. A very small amount. The silver needle won't change color, and ordinary poison tests won't catch it. But if a pregnant woman eats this, she'll miscarry. When Empress Rong realized I hadn't eaten the cakes, she tried another approach. 3 days later, she hosted a flower-viewing banquet in the harem. All the concubines were required to attend. I sat in the farthest corner, with cold dishes and a flask of wine in front of me. I didn't dare touch the wine, I just raised the cup as a gesture. Empress Rong sat at the head, her phoenix crown resplendent, her robes embroidered with 100 butterflies amid flowers. She kept glancing my way, her eyes like someone sizing up a rabbit in a cage. Midway through the banquet, Consort Shu rose to perform a dance, drawing everyone's attention. In the commotion, a young eunuch set a bowl of soup in front of me. Lady Su, Her Majesty specifically ordered this nourishing soup for you. I looked at the bowl and caught a whiff of medicine. Thank you. I'll drink it in a moment. Her Majesty instructed that you drink it now, or she won't rest easy. I picked up the bowl and glanced around. Everyone was watching Consort Shu dance. No one noticed the low-ranking attendant in the corner. The bowl reached my lips. Wait. Stop. A voice came from behind me, carrying an undeniable authority. I turned to see a man in dark red robes striding toward me. Shui Jingyuan. Everyone scrambled to their feet and bowed. He glanced at the bowl in my hand, his brow furrowing slightly. What's this? The young eunuch knelt. Your Majesty, this is the nourishing soup Her Majesty the Empress prepared for concubine Su. Shui Jingyuan turned his gaze to Empress Rong. Empress Rong smiled with composure. Is it wrong for me to look after my sisters in the harem on Your Majesty's behalf? A mere concubine doesn't require your personal attention, Empress. At those words, Empress Rong's smile froze on her face. Shui Jingyuan cast a cold glance at me. Put the soup down. Don't put just anything in your mouth. With that, he turned and left. Empress Rong watched him go, then slowly picked up her teacup and took a sip. She didn't look at me again. But I knew this was far from over. An obstacle she couldn't poison directly, she'd find another way to remove. Sure enough, 10 days later, everything fell apart. That morning, as I was having breakfast, a wave of nausea hit me hard. I rushed to a corner and retched uncontrollably. Xinger hurriedly brought water. Just as I took it, the door burst open. Nanny Yun stood at the entrance with 4 maids behind her. Concubine Su, Her Majesty requests your presence at Fanny Palace. It cannot be postponed. When I arrived at Fanny Palace, the main hall held not only Empress Rong but also another person, Physician Gao. Empress Rong sat at the head, her smile warm and gentle. Don't be nervous, sister. I'm just concerned about your health. Physician Gao, take her pulse. Physician Gao's 3 fingers pressed against my wrist. Within 5 seconds, his pupils contracted sharply. He looked at me, then at Empress Rong. The hall fell so silent I could hear my own heartbeat. Your Majesty. Concubine Su is pregnant. The air froze. Empress Rong's smile faded inch by inch, like cracks spreading slowly across ice. Pregnant? Her voice wasn't loud, but it sent a chill down my spine. When did Concubine Su ever receive the Emperor's favor? Your Majesty, the bedchamber records show no such instance, Nanny Yun interjected immediately, her tone icy. Empress Rong's gaze fixed on my face. The gentleness in her almond-shaped eyes shattered completely, revealing the cold ice beneath. Su Jinyuan, I ask you again, whose child is this? I knelt on the cold stone floor, my knees aching. My mind raced. Denying the pregnancy was impossible. Claiming it was the Emperor's. Without bedchamber records, she'd accuse me of immorality. Saying nothing. She'd slap me with the charge of defiling the palace and have me beaten to death. Both paths led to death. I knelt there, despair washing over me like a tide. And then, it's mine. Everyone turned toward the door. Shui Jingyuan stood at the threshold of Fengyi Palace, his face expressionless. Empress Rong shot to her feet. Your Majesty. He walked in, unhurried, as casually as entering his own study. His gaze swept past Physician Gao and settled on me as I knelt. It took them this long to find out. You certainly know how to hide. I couldn't tell if he was helping me or scolding me. I dared not disturb your Majesty. Humph. He turned to Empress Rong, his tone casual. Since the Empress is so concerned about her sisters, I'll entrust Su Jinyuan's prenatal care to you as well. Entrust it to the Empress. That was like putting me right on the chopping block. Empress Rong maintained the last shred of a polite smile. I obey your Majesty's decree. Shui Jingyuan left. As I exited Fengyi Palace, Nanny Yun caught up to me, her voice flat. Concubine Su, Her Majesty has arranged for you to move into the side hall of Fengyi Palace starting today, for easier care. My hands clenched into fists inside my sleeves. Under her watchful eye, killing me would be easier than crushing an ant. But I couldn't refuse. I obey. That evening, as I packed my things, Xing'er was crying in panic. Mistress, once we go to Fengyi Palace, we'll be meat on the chopping block. I hid some miscarriage-preventing herbs in the lining of my clothes, then quietly told her to secretly contact Shen Qingyun. Tell him to deliver the medicine to the side hall of Fengyi Palace every 3 days, hidden in the lining of the sewing basket, and have it brought in through the laundry room. Xing'er nodded, tears in her eyes. After moving into the side hall of Fengyi Palace, I discovered 3 things. All my meals were provided by Fengyi Palace's small kitchen, never passing through my hands. Xing'er had been reassigned, and 2 of the Empress's people were now watching me closely. I couldn't leave my room. They called it rest for the pregnancy, but it was really imprisonment. I was like a bird trapped in a cage, waiting for its owner to decide whether to keep it or wring its neck. But I still had 1 card left to play. I started copying sutras. I told the 2 new maids that I wanted to continue copying Buddhist scriptures to pray for the Empress's blessings. Empress Rong approved. A pregnant woman cooped up copying sutras posed no threat to her. But she didn't know these weren't ordinary sutras. On the last page of each scroll, I wrote a few lines in very faint ink. Not a plea for help. Poetry. Poems that Shui Jingyuan had written in the Hanlin Academy when he was young. Before I entered the palace, I heard about them from a scholar at a Jiangnan academy, who said the current emperor was brilliant in his youth but never wrote again after taking the throne. I was betting he would care about those old memories. Once the sutras were copied, they were sent to the main hall of Fani Palace, then transferred to the Buddhist shrine for offering. They passed through the empress's hands in between. But the shrine was open to everyone, anyone could go in to burn incense. 5 days later, I got my answer. That evening, Shui Jingyuan came to Fani Palace to visit the empress, and on his way out, he stopped by the side hall. Chun Tao and Qiuyan hastily knelt. I set down my brush and bowed. Your subject greets your majesty. He picked up the sutra scroll from the table and casually flipped through a couple of pages. When he reached the last page, his movements stopped. The poem read, Young ambition knows no sorrow, riding through the autumn of 1,000 miles in Chang'an. He wrote it at 16. Before he took the throne, before he'd killed anyone, before he became a tyrant. You know my poetry. Your subject heard of it in Jiangnan. The scholar said this one was the best. He said nothing. He set the scroll down, paused, and then asked, How are you getting along? Everything is fine. The empress has been very attentive. The words were flawless, and he couldn't have missed the undertone. He glanced at me, and as he turned to leave, he left a remark. Add 2 extra dishes for her. A pregnant woman shouldn't go hungry. That was directed at Chun Tao. Less than a stick of incense after he left, Empress Rong arrived. She stood at the entrance to the side hall, not stepping inside. Sister, quite the skill. Copying sutras all the way to the emperor's attention. Your subject was merely copying scriptures to pray for blessings. Su Jinyuan. She cut me off, her voice cold as iron. You think just because you're carrying a child, you can turn the world upside down. She looked me up and down, the corner of her mouth twitching. Let me tell you, you're not the only one in this palace who's carried the dragon seed. But not a single one has ever managed to give birth. With that, she turned and left. I stood there, my hand instinctively moving to my belly. She was telling the truth. Before me, at least 2 consorts had been pregnant, and both had accidentally miscarried. What made me think I could hold on to this one? I told myself to stay calm. I was different from them. They didn't know the emperor was infertile. They didn't know they were carrying the only heir to the throne. They didn't know that the person who had harmed the emperor was the very one they thought was their protector. But I knew. That was my only lifeline. That night, I made a dangerous decision. I couldn't wait any longer. If I waited, Empress Rome would eventually find a way to harm my child. I had to take the initiative and expose the truth that the Rome family had made the emperor infertile. But the question was, how? Who would believe a low-ranking concubine? Unless I brought the evidence directly to the emperor. And that required one thing, I had to get out of this cage called Fani Palace first. 3 days later, in the early hours of the morning, I got my chance. Chun Tao had gone to breakfast, and Qiu Yan was dozing in the outer room. I used a hairpin to pry open the window latch, then slipped out sideways. With a nearly 6-month belly, climbing through the window was rough, my stomach scraped against the frame, and the pain nearly made me cry out. But I didn't look back. Along the narrow passage behind Fani Palace, I made my way to the imperial study. The eunuch at the door stopped me. Which palace are you from? This is the imperial study, Su Dang of Jingyue Pavilion. I have urgent business with His Majesty. The eunuch looked me up and down, his gaze landing on my swollen belly. His expression shifted. Wait here. After a cup of tea's time, a single word came from inside. Enter. I walked in. Shui Jingyuan was reviewing memorials under the lamp. Seeing my disheveled state, his hand holding the brush paused for a moment. You ran here. Your Majesty, I have something important to report. Speak. I took a deep breath. Your Majesty. Is your health failing? He set down his brush slowly, but the temperature in the room dropped to freezing in an instant. What did you say? I heard that 3 years ago, a traveling physician came to the palace to treat the Empress. Your Majesty tried the medicine for her. That medicine contained a component that slowly damages kidney qi. After taking it for 3 months. Enough. He stood up. His eyes looked at me as if I were already dead. Su Jinyuan, do you know what you're saying? I do. That's why I risked my life to ask, who recommended that physician to the palace? Has your Majesty investigated? Silence. In the study, only the faint crackle of the lamp wick broke the quiet. His Adam's apple moved. This was his sore spot. He must have investigated, but likely never traced it back to the Rong family. Or maybe he found out, but didn't want to believe it. Your Majesty, I dare to speak boldly. I knelt down. I carry your only bloodline. Triplets. I risked my life to see you, not for anything else, but so these 3 children can be born safely into this world. Triplets. A barely perceptible tremor ran through his voice. The imperial physician confirmed it. 3. He walked around the desk and stood before me, looking down. His gaze held too many things, suspicion, fury, and an undercurrent I couldn't read. Do you know the punishment for falsely accusing the Empress? Execution of my entire family. You're not afraid. I am. But I'm more afraid of losing my children. He stared at me for a long time. So long that my knees, pressed against the brick floor, went numb. Then he turned and called out, "Someone. Summon the commander of the embroidered uniform guard." I lay prostrate on the ground, my heartbeat pounding so hard it made my temples throb. I'd won the gamble. The embroidered uniform guard uncovered most of the truth in 3 days, and spent 5 more piecing together the entire chain. The physician's surname was Zhou. A wandering doctor by trade. 3 years ago, the Rome family's steward brought him to the capital, gave him a new identity and a sum of money, and arranged for him to enter the palace to treat the Empress's old ailment. But Empress Rong never had any old ailment. The prescription wasn't a mistake, it was deliberate. The medicine contained a substance that slowly damaged kidney function. The emperor took it for 3 months while testing it for the empress, and that's how he lost his ability to have heirs. The night the report reached the study, half the palace heard Shui Jingyuan's roar from Feni Palace. Empress Rong was deposed and thrown into the cold palace. Rong Guozhang, Rong Xian, was stripped of all positions, and the Rong family's honors across 3 generations were ordered to be reinvestigated. I was moved to Changle Palace, the palace farthest from Feni Palace, with guards on all sides and imperial physicians on rotating duty around the clock. Xing'e returned to my side. Shen Qingyun was promoted to the preliminary list for the special medical team for the 3 princes. Everything seemed to be heading in the right direction. But Empress Rong wouldn't just wait to die in the cold palace. Lu Quan, the chief eunuch who had served the emperor for 20 years, had committed a murder in his youth, and the Rong family had covered it up. That secret was the last card Empress Rong held. I didn't tell the emperor directly. Last time in the imperial study, he didn't press me about where I got my information, but sooner or later, he would. A low-ranking concubine knowing too much isn't a pleasant surprise to an emperor, it's a threat. So I took a different approach. Shen Qingyun had an unlikely friend at the Imperial Medical Academy, an old physician named Shen Ko. He was a blunt man, and one night while on duty, he'd accidentally seen Lu Quan heading toward the cold palace in the dead of night. The old doctor was too afraid to speak up. I had Shen Qingyun arrange for Chen Ko to casually mention it during the emperor's routine health check. Your Majesty, during my recent night duties, I noticed eunuch Lu heading toward the cold palace several times. Xue Jingyuan said nothing. But that very night, the Jinui arrested Lu Quan. When they searched his quarters, they found 2 handwritten letters from Empress Rong. The first said, "Make sure this is settled before Su gives birth." The second, addressed to someone outside the palace called Shadow, contained only one line: activate the final contingency. After reading them, Xue Jingyuan was silent for a long time. The next day, he came to Chang'e Palace. It was the first time he didn't put on the imperial airs in front of me. He sat in a chair, staring at my growing belly, and didn't speak for a long while. I stayed quiet too. Finally, he said something that caught me off guard. "Are you afraid of me?" "Yes." "That day in the imperial study, why did you dare to come?" "Because staying away would have killed me faster." He looked at me, then let out a small laugh. It wasn't mocking, and it wasn't happy, more like a bitter smile. "Su Jinyuan, you're smarter than all my ministers and concubines combined. And what does your Majesty intend to do about it?" "I haven't decided yet." He left. I sat in the empty hall, turning his last words over and over. He hadn't figured out what to do with me yet. A woman too clever for an emperor is either an ally or a liability. I had to convince him I was the former. In my 8th month, I had a scare. That night, the pain was so bad I couldn't lie still. Triplets are always more likely to come early, Shen Qingyun had warned me about that. But I never expected it to hit so suddenly. Chang'e Palace erupted into chaos. Shen Qingyun arrived first, 2 midwives right behind him. I was sweating buckets, biting down on a cloth so hard I nearly cracked my teeth. When the first baby came out, I almost blacked out. Shen Qingyun's hands were covered in blood, but his voice was steady. "The first one's out, a little prince." His cry was loud and sharp, hitting my chest like a hammer. The second followed right behind, another boy. But the third one had trouble. He was breech, stuck. Shen Qingyun's hands started shaking. "Su Dang, you need to push." I had no strength left. All I could see was blood flying everywhere, and my consciousness was teetering on the edge of collapse. Then the golden text appeared, down to a single line. "You can't die. If you do, none of the 3 babies will survive." Those words stabbed into my nerves like needles. I bit through the last piece of cloth in my mouth and poured every ounce of energy I had left into one final push. I don't know how long it took. When the third cry rang out, I couldn't see anything anymore. I just heard Shen Qingyun's voice, like it was coming from far away. 3. All boys. Su Dang. Su Dang. Then the world went dark. When I woke up, 3 days had passed. Xing'er was sobbing by my bedside, her eyes swollen like walnuts. The moment she saw me open my eyes, she let out a wail, "My lady. You're finally awake. Where are the babies?" "They're all fine. All 3 little princes are fine. Plump and healthy." I closed my eyes, and tears streamed down uncontrollably. I made it. They all made it. Xing'er told me what had happened in those 3 days. Shui Jingyuan had come, more than once. Every day I was unconscious, he visited Changel Palace. His Majesty held all three little princes for a long time, Xinger said, her voice full of disbelief. He also asked Dr. Shen about your condition. Dr. Shen said you'd lost too much blood and needed rest, so His Majesty didn't come in to disturb you. Did he say anything else? Xinger thought for a moment. The Emperor said, she preserved my bloodline. I owe her. He owes me. When the Emperor says he owes you, it's either a promise as solid as stone or a courtesy he'll forget in a heartbeat. Right now, I can't tell which. But one thing is certain, the three princes are born. The only heirs in all of Great Yen. From this day forward, no one can touch me easily. On the day of the full moon banquet, the palace was decorated with lanterns and bunting, and all the officials came to offer congratulations. I was made noble consort, seated just one step below the empty empress's throne. Shui Jingyuan held the eldest prince on the dragon throne, his posture awkward, but his expression softer than I'd ever seen. He named the three children, the eldest Shui Xianzhao, the second Shui Xianming, the third Shui Xuanqi. The officials knelt and cheered, hailing long life. I sat beside him, my palms slick with cold sweat. Because the golden text told me someone would come to kill my children tonight. I had already arranged for Shen Qingyun to claim that my health wasn't fully recovered, so the wet nurses kept the second and third princes in the rear hall of Changel Palace, away from the banquet. To the outside, we said the two young princes had caught a chill. Then, I passed the information to the commander of the Imperial Guard. Not through Shui Jingyuan, I couldn't let him question my sources again. I had Xinger pose as Lu Quan's goddaughter and deliver a secret letter hidden in Lu Quan's compartment to the Imperial Guard. The letter was forged, my handwriting mimicking Empress Rong's. The content was simple: strike at the full moon banquet, target the Imperial heirs. The Imperial Guard wouldn't bother verifying the letter's authenticity. Lu Quan had already been executed, and the dead can't testify. But the letter's content was enough to make them double their vigilance during the banquet. Halfway through the feast, a beam above the hall cracked with a sharp sound. All the lanterns went out. In the darkness, I heard the whistle of projectiles. Hidden weapons. Protect the Emperor. Guards drew their swords, chaos erupting. My instinct was to lunge for the eldest prince in Shui Jingyuan's arms, snatch him, and roll under the table. Several darts struck the back of my chair, less than 3 inches from where I'd been sitting. A gash opened on my arm, blood soaking my sleeve, but I felt no pain. Su Jingyuan. It was Shui Jingyuan's voice. Somehow, he'd already gotten under the table too, grabbing my arm to steady me. In the dark, I couldn't see his face, but his grip was tight, as if letting go would mean losing me forever. When the lights came back on, 6 assassins in black lay dead on the floor, and 2 were captured alive. Because the Imperial Guard had been ready. The 3 princes were unharmed. Shui Jingyuan stood in the center of the hall, blood on his robes. He looked at the captured assassins, his voice eerily calm. Question them. Until dawn. That night, the interrogation revealed that the assassin group, Shadow, were death warriors raised by the Rong family, and the mastermind was Rong Xian, who'd been stripped of his office but secretly contacting old allies. Kill the heirs, leave the emperor without a successor, and Great Yen would fall into a power struggle for the throne. The Rong family had already planted pawns among the imperial clan. After hearing the report, Shui Jingyuan said only one sentence. The Rong family, execute the entire household. No one dared plead for mercy. A month later, I was elevated to imperial noble consort, with authority over the entire harem. Shui Jingyuan never named a new empress. But he came to Changle Palace more and more often. Sometimes, after reviewing memorials, he'd come sit for a while, not saying much, just watching the children, watching me. One day, he brought a brocade box. Inside was the Empress's seal. "I've thought about it for a long time," he said. "The throne beside me is yours. Will you take it? Does your Majesty think I'm worthy?" "I don't care about worthy. I only care whether you can protect our 3 children." "I can." "Then that's enough." He set the box down and turned to leave. I called after him. "Your Majesty." He stopped. "The damage from that poison, Shantai says it can be treated slowly. Please take care of yourself. The children need their father." He was silent for a few seconds. "And they need their mother." After the door closed, I sat by the window. The moon was round and cold. The 3 little ones were sleeping soundly in their cradle. The oldest was quiet, the middle one was fussing, and the youngest was smacking his lips. A line of golden text floated by at last: "Congratulations, little concubine. But to become Empress Dowager, you must first become Empress." I looked at the words and smiled softly. Then I lowered my head and said to the 3 children, "Your father isn't very good at sweet talk, but I'll teach him slowly." Moonlight poured through the window, filling the room with golden light.